Okay, this is video 2 of the Lumberjack Cheese channel. Welcome back. If you've watched my first video, I am so sorry for the rotated angle. I'm sure your necks are, in pain from having to look sideways. The question that we are going to approach today is psychological success. Let's just see if you guys can read that. Let's zoom in a little bit more. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay, psychological success. Why is it important to succeed psychologically? And what does that mean? What does that look like, right? So, why is it important? What does that mean? And what does that look like? 3 W's. Okay, so why is psychological success important? Well, something that a lot of people don't have. Why is it important? Well, it can unlock a lot of doors that are often closed for most people, which, can be happiness, can be, not feeling anxiety or depression, or not, just going crazy, not putting yourself in the position to be, sucked down a rabbit hole that will eventually lead to you, feeling miserable, trapped, any of the negative emotions, or, in a religious context, letting the adversary eat the life out of you, just being consumed and not having a way to get out. Psychological success is the opposite of that, is not being miserable, knowing what to do, being prepared, having the tools, the toolbox to, live as you would honestly idealize, the life you want to live. This is like what self-help books preach, which is going to be conflicting to, their basically their business is getting to the point where advice, the only advice that's valuable is your own advice. Getting to the point where your advice can be so self-valuable that other people's advice just won't work for you. That is honestly the goal. So, outside advice, let's draw a little man right here. Advice is no good. Is not good. It doesn't help you, or it doesn't help you enough. And you can see, the pitfalls of the arguments, which will help a lot. And you can see your own pitfalls. You can see your own pitfalls of your own advice, right? It's like a person looking into a person's own belief, kind of like the Truman Show. Seeing that person, which is you, from the outside view to determine what is good and what isn't, and then being able to critique that later to change your mind. Which is a great, time to add to the notebook, which is to say that you can always double underline change your mind. You can always change your mind, no matter what. No matter what, you can always change your mind. When you switch into the left lane because you want to pass someone, but then the person you're trying to pass speeds up, and then there's a car in front of you and you can't get past that person because they're slow. You can always change your mind, go back into the right lane. And if that person slows down, the left car speeds up, you can always change your mind and go back into the left lane. And being able to do that, being able to do this has prerequisites, has a lot of prerequisites. This is like wearing the crown, right? There we go. An awesome looking crown. It's like you're the king of your world. If you can get to the point in your life where you can always change your mind, no matter what. Because some people, a lot of people can't. They can't change their mind even though they want to. They really, 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 really want to, but they feel so locked in that they can't get out, and that it hurts them to get out. Is overcoming that. That is, oh my goodness, that is gold. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So you said, why is it important? Why? Because you live a better life. A human being needs this for a good life. It's almost a prerequisite. It's required. What is it? What does it mean to have psychological success? Well, we defined it. One of the pieces that is that you can always change your mind, right? You can always be happy. You can basically confront, let's flip back here, the void without the despair, without the the nihilism. You talked about the night of the soul, a dark night of the soul. This is overcoming that, and you can get to the point where you don't even need God. And that's not a bad thing, because for those of you that live with Him, or the other gods that you believe in, there's a lot. You are more connected, because this isn't about being this way strictly. This is about being this way ambiguously, precariously, being uncertain, and then, creating certainty in your future. Just cherry pick. You can disagree on so much, and that's okay. That's good. It's great that we do that. But you need to cherry pick from the information that I have. Now, one thing we need to clarify is that I can never share with you how I got to these answers. But what I can tell you, and what I'll hope you trust and believe me, is that I've come to these answers after a lot of contemplation, a lot of thinking, a lot of, finding something that's true and then finding out that it's not true, or not true enough, and that other things are more true than other things, which a lot of people can't even process, that things can be more true than other things, and that it's, even though something, let's flip it, even though something is more true, it doesn't mean it's good that it's more true, and that some things that are less true are better, right? The human experience is subjective. One thing a lot of people are not gonna like: religion creates answers, black and white, right? I guess I'll draw a line. Black, then you have, the white line, which will draw a little box, to symbolize it. Um, Living black and white is to your detriment. That has been the answer that I found 110% of the time. To your detriment to live this way. You need to live here, a mixture of the two. You need a balance, right? You need to be able to shift from one side to the other. Also, if you live in a black world, you can't see anything. If you live in a white world, everything's too bright, right? Gray is where the spectrum, the color spectrum lives. Red, green, blue, yellow, orange, pink, purple, turquoise, lime, yellow, marigold. All of it lives in the gray, and that's why, you know, this is all about finding the one right way, the one true way. Once you can let go over trying to control, what is the one true way, you can actually live. And oh my goodness, that's a whole rabbit hole to go into. There's so many. Okay, for now, let's put that aside. What does that look? Well, okay, so why is it important? What does it look like? And now we're gonna go into the practical side of it, which is, how do you get there? How do you get psychological success? Well, it has prerequisites, and we have to now determine what are the prerequisites to psychological success. Well, the first one, oh my goodness, this is such a horrible way to do this. The first one is, you have to be willing always to say that you're wrong. This is, oh my goodness, this is horrible. You have to find these answers yourself. Telling you this is doing you all a disservice, but I'm going to do it anyway. So you have to always be able to say that you're wrong. Say that you are wrong, right? And that it's okay. It's a two-parter. You have to say, it's okay. Can you guess where this is going? It's okay is also a rule. But the reason why I'm putting it here and here is because you're going to find out that this precedes everything. It's okay is like, handing bread to someone who's starving, but it's for your brain. And it's like teaching a man how to fish instead of giving him a fish, is internalizing it's okay. Oh my goodness, this is a whole video. I may even just decide not to do any psychological success, but why it's okay, why it's beneficial to say it's okay to everything. Very, very important. It's so key. Let's do it. Let's do that. I'm going to rename the video. It's going to say this, but it's on the video. It's not going to say that. So, welcome. You're here. Let's get started. Okay. So it's okay. What does okay give you? If you can say it's okay to everything, you get in a car crash, you say it's okay, right? It's like a whole different, this is like one road, this is another road. And you have to think of things as you go along the road, you pick up little, little items, little giblets, blessings, curses, I don't know. So you have to think of, this is your life, this is your way of thinking. And along the road, remember Fog of War, episode 1, the introduction to the lumberjack cheese video, right? You have Fog of War. You can't see past this line, but there are good and bad things that you pick up along the way that you won't know. The worst case scenario is that you die, basically, right? You roll the dice, it's bad, you lose all your money, you're gambling, thinking it's okay to gamble, then going to gamble. It's like, this is step 1, it's okay to gamble. Step 2 is you roll, you gamble the first time. Step 3 is you gamble some more, and then step 4 is you take out some money to gamble some more, and then you ask a friend for more money so they can gamble some more, and then this leads you to picking up this where you get beat up in the streets, and this leads you that way. You get it. It's a story. There are consequences to your action. You don't know, because we all are ignorant. If you can say it's okay, and this is where there's faith, there's trust. I'm going to ask that you put your trust in me like you'd put faith in, to a Messiah that just showed you a miracle. And I'm going to make you go from being blind to being able to see, ultraviolet, infrared. If you can say it's okay, when you get in a car crash, that's going to lead to you picking up a lot of really good things. I got rear-ended. Let me tell you my story. I got rear-ended, and this is after I've already, been way down this line, like years I've been practicing this. I got out of my car to the lady who rear-ended me, and, I just reassured her, because it was at this point, I know I'm fine, because I'm already here, okay? But she isn't. She's panicking, she's worried, she has all these thoughts, she's thinking about the future and the past, how things led up to here, the consequences of her actions. She needs to be reassured. Because here's another rule, is that the emotional well-being of others is supreme. If you're good at this, you can basically throw anything out the window, because other people will take care of you because you're taking care of them. It's a back and forth. You give, and give. Like Alex Hormozi says, You know, you have 3-to-1 ratio on Instagram. You give 3 times, then you take. People are all okay with it, and they'll even give you more. But instead of just taking, you never take. You just give, and people will just start throwing stuff at you, like take my money, take it. You know what I mean? That was horrible. That was cringy. I'm so sorry. Okay, gotta get rid of the monotone voice. So let's say, you know, one day you watch this video and you get into a car crash or something bad happens to you. You wake up in a bad mood and you just say, it's okay, right? Let's get back to the central theme of this video. I'm so sorry, guys. What you're gonna find happen is that your brain is going to all basically rewire itself for emotional stability, right? You can still fluctuate, but there's a different baseline. A baseline that equals, you know, if everything is okay, what is that? It's good. You know, things are safe. A baseline of safety. And when you feel safe, what does that feel like? You know, you're safe with your dad, he's giving you a big hug, or you know, you're with your friend, you're just cruising, listening to tunes. What is that? What do you think of? That is enjoyment, relaxation, it's peace. And peace, you ever heard the saying, you know, you gotta protect your peace? That is peace. Okay, you're protecting your peace by saying it's okay. I can't tell you how I got here. I can only tell you that my experience so far has been a blessing. If there's any superpower in the world that, you know, a human can attain, it's this. This is, you know, I have many superpowers, I guess you could say. And this is the strongest one. Because every day you will go through trial and tribulation. And, you know, if you're okay at the end of it all, it means you survived the storm, and now you can enjoy, you know, the calm, tranquil waters, you know, drinking tea and coffee, and you know, or you know, enjoying a bagel with cream cheese, any way you want to. But it's being able to just, after a storm, you're in tranquil seas, not to stay in panic mode. It's to come back and say, you're safe, you're protected. It's, you know, self-parenting. Self-parenting. In a relationship with someone, the best relationship you can have is that when the other person regresses into a childlike state of needing love and reassurance, their partner can give that to them. You know, you see a kid crying because he got in trouble, you run in and you say, hey, you know, let's go get an ice cream cone. I'll tell you a personal story. You know, I have a little cousin. He's, you know, 8 years old. You know, grandpa got frustrated at him. He, you know, he was being too loud, and I came up and I said, hey, let's go get a milkshake, because I knew exactly how he felt, and it didn't matter logically, right? Didn't matter. Well, do matter? It doesn't matter logically whether what he did was right or wrong. This is a black and white occasion, you know, or not occasion, topic, right? White box to symbolize white, black to that. This is logic, right? Yes, no, true, false, you know, like redstone in Minecraft. This is gray. This is gray, okay? And gray is what matters. And so what does matter is that even though Jax does, that's his name, even though he was upset and it, you know, was his fault being too loud within the context, which I don't really think was true, you know, what does matter is that you take care of him and he can feel safe and protected, and that, you know, he can learn from that experience, but he can learn from it from a place of calm, and you can give that to him. So emotionally, the right decision is to, you know, give him a hug and love him. But doing this is basically giving that to yourself. Self-parenting, self-loving. And so when people say you have to love yourself, that is so confusing. How do you love yourself? Does that make any sense, really? explain that to me. How do you love yourself? What does that look like? This is that. It's saying that it doesn't matter logically, whether it's true or false doesn't matter, okay? It's not important. What matters is emotionally, taking care of yourself emotionally. What's in your head, you will always react based on emotion, fear, happiness, anger, strength, there's so many words to describe emotion before logic, because logic is something that's given to you, emotion is something that you have, and that is humanism. And anthropology will tell you that. That is a huge basis for anthropology, is what is given to you and what do you have innately. That is nurture versus nature. Right? So self-loving is saying it's okay to have a bad situation. Okay. Now what I'm going to say next is something a lot of you won't be able to conceptualize. You won't be able to understand. It doesn't make sense, but it will benefit you regardless of the logicality of it. Okay? Because remember, in this situation, it matters emotionally the outcome. The end result emotionally is what matters. You can always, re-logic things out later, right? But if you're a mess later too, you'll never get to the right result, a great result, if you're emotionally a mess. That's why you have to take care of yourself, okay? So let's confront it. What is a really hard thing to accept? Which is that bad situations, let's get rid of that, let's put a space, situations are okay. Okay? Just as good situations can be greater. Let's say greater than or equal to, being. We have that backwards. It's this. Greater than or equal to being okay, right? So this is saying this is the worst thing that can happen to you. This is the worst thing that can happen to you. Bad situations are still okay, right? So this is 0, this is 10 points. And then every situation above it, is amazing, right? And if you can live in this world instead of this world where you say, this is a okay situation. This is right here, right? This is right here. So let's say this is -10. How do I explain this? Okay. And then this is 10 points. So this is a good situation, right? These two. One is 20, ignore that line. This is supposed to be 20, this is 10, right? So the way I live is that the worst situation that can happen to you is already at 0. That's like bottom of the barrel. That's hitting, you're at the bottom, right? But for a lot of people, 0 is neutral. This is what they're used to. They're used to bad situations, being just baseline for their day. Just, a regular day, bad day. For me, this is that. I'm already at 10 points. I'm always at 10 points. I'm always winning. I start with 10 points. It's like a bonus trait to like a race in D&D or whatever. Some people live here where, a really, really bad situation is -10. A really, really bad situation for me is 0. And I would say this is a more beneficial way to live, to be at where, you're at 20, 20 is your max rather than 10 being your max. Because then you're always in a good spot. And that's what matters. That's going to help you emotionally be great. You can always know that a bad situation, which I'm probably not even diagramming this right, you're always at 10 points still. And a really, really bad situation is just 0. So really, baseline for right here, for someone else, is like right here, 15 points. And if you're at 15 points, you're still winning. Okay, at least you're not at negative. Okay, so it's okay. The experience that I've had collectively is that you are better off. You like upgrade your max point limit and you always start at 10 on like a normal day instead of 0. And if you can do that, I can tell you that along the way, you're gonna pick up a lot of really good habits, and you're gonna start leaving habits. Again, let's bring this back to the highway, which I'm going off in 15 different directions right now. Now having a concrete storyline, which is something I'll try and work on in future videos. Thanks for sticking with me if you're here this far. Let's figure out. We're already in 25 minutes. That's ridiculous. I think we'll just end this one here.